think that South Africans will begin to appreciate that a party of 6% is doing what a party of 60% couldn't do for many years. And imagine if this party had the same percentage, what would have delivered? In our discussion after the 2016 elections, we gave the ANC certain conditions. And one of those conditions was that Zuma must go, the stem must fall, one capital city, Gupta Commission, and free education. And the ANC seems to be meeting all of the conditions we have given them during those negotiations. We gave the same conditions to the DA, and the DA seems not to be meeting any of the conditions we have given them on why they should run the metros. And they are forever drifting away from the EFF. So we will have to find a way of really dealing with the situation in the metros. Comrade Terror, when you went to prison Robben Island, you were a black consciousness. And when you came back, you became a historical mistake, which came out of Robben Island. It is extremely disappointing every time you open your mouth to speak here, that which you thought you represent, you have abandoned. You can't ask the question, who are your people? Because the National Democratic Revolution answers that question. It says the motive forces that stands to benefit from the victories of this revolution, those are our people. The motive forces of the National Democratic Revolution, which you went to prison for. The motive forces of the National Democratic Revolution are the oppressed. Who are the oppressed? The blacks in general and Africans in particular. But consciousness, when it escapes you, it doesn't say goodbye. You are such a typical example of a person who has just lost his political consciousness. Because these teachings they should have taught you in Robben Island. But clearly, that University of Life has dismally failed when it came to you. So it is actually extremely wrong of you to stand here and want to distort a history. All we are saying is that, as the EFF, let us subject the whole thing to consultation. We don't have a problem. We cannot come and meet here as a group of elite and take a decision on behalf of our people. Let it be referred to committees. Let our people be consulted. Let ordinary South Africans make input. We are not opposed to that. As long as this parliament agrees that indeed we are at one, but let us go and take a further mandate from our people. So we are happy as the EFF with the types of amendment the ANC want to make. This is not about party politics. This is about an issue of national interest. So on the 6th of April, as I conclude, the day of the Jan van Riebeeck arrival, 6th of April, the day of Jan van Riebeeck arrival, the day of the formation of the PAC by Sebukwe, and the hanging of Solomon Mahlangu, in honor of these people, but also as a demonstration of seriousness about this issue of land, we will be passing a motion of no confidence on the mayor of PE as a warning shot to the DA. Thank you very much.
Thank you, honorable members.
Once more, thank you, Chairperson. For starters, I'd like to say that, Honorable Mr. Malema, I was in the House when you said what you said, and I cannot not say anything about it because it might be that I endorse that. I think we should leave the matter of whether I'm an accident of history or not. I think we should leave it for generations to come. They will pass judgment. On this issue, the problem so far has been one of abject failure by the ANC-led government to utilize these instruments and to give effect to the progressive realization of land reform rather than to impediments created by the Constitution. This is borne out in Parliament's high-level panel report, which reveals that, 1, the report on the progressive realization of land reform rights has been concerning and slow, that the development of policy and law has drifted away from its initial pro-poor stance and lacks a vision for inclusive agrarian reform. 3, that there are also significant gaps, such as on tenure security, where legislation has not been passed, putting the lives and livelihoods of many rural dwellers in peril. 4thly, that government's interpretation of customary law centered on traditional leadership and away from living customs has added to insecurity. The report makes comprehensive recommendations and calls for crucial interventions, but nowhere does the panel report call for the amendment of the Constitution. Yes, it is true that constitutions may be amended, but there must be sufficient firm grounds why you need to do so. This is a living document. It speaks about progressive realization of the objectives in a number of different. Section 25, Section 26, it speaks about progressive realization, recognizing that you cannot solve inside of 5 or 10 years or 20 years many other issues that are involved in this question. Those will take time, but time ahead is not as much as what is behind us is finished. We must look into the future, and that's what this document is based on. I thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Next speaker.
No, thank you very much, House Chair. It is not unconstitutional to amend the Constitution. It's actually a constitutional practice to amend the Constitution. And this is what this Parliament is supposed to do. From time to time as Parliament, we must sit and look into the base document that has constituted this House, that organizes society, and check if that is the appropriate means upon which we must go forward. It's clear now that majority of black political parties are saying that the Constitution is not helping us adequately when it comes to dealing with the land question. So the DA can express its own views in terms of their own racial and class prejudices. But the fact of the matter is that we should ultimately expropriate land without compensation. We agree with the amendment as proposed in the context that instead of the ad hoc committee which we had proposed should look into this, we should instead use the Constitutional Review Committee, which is a joint committee inclusive of members of the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces. And that committee must engage in public consultations, get submissions, and then come in August to table a report to say that these are parts of the Constitution that we must amend. These are certain legislations that we must align so that we enable the state to expropriate land without compensation. So that is the context within which we are dealing with all of these issues. And we do not have fundamental problem with the characterization that we are dealing with the original sin. So the amendment clearly puts that into context, that we are dealing with the original sin of land dispossession, of our people being taken out of their own land, and apartheid and land dispossession was a legislated reality. So we have to use our legislative powers, our constitution-making powers, to undo the injustices of the past. And if we do not do so, we'll be failing the many generations of people who died fighting in the wars of resistance. We'll be failing so many people who died fighting for the freedom, who were incarcerated, were imprisoned, were exiled because they wanted their land back. So we must continue to work clearly and decidedly as black political parties to reclaim our land. Easily. The
IFP.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson and colleagues, firstly, congratulations to all the new ministers that have been appointed. When our colleague, Honourable Kebekulu, spoke here, he did say that we would support the process of land